Yeah, but I will. But
Go ahead.
I want to tell one thing first. First, we got the team to agree that we were going to make it look like a Ford GT. And I got to tell you, Camilla did a fabulous job doing it. You look at these surfaces and everything else, it's even better than the original. But it's scaled up, which is pretty amazing. This car is basically 10% larger than the original so that it could fit real humans, not skinny race drivers. Now, one thing, before we get to the approval, I got the guys together. I knew the history of these cars. That car over there flies. The front end lifts off the ground at over miles an hour. In fact, I can't remember which car it was. I told the guys, get one of the originals. It was either the green one or the blue one. We sent over to the full-size wind tunnel, and it's somewhere north of 200 miles an hour. I think it was around 210. The front wheels would literally come off the ground. Now, then I said to the guys, it's still, and especially the engineers now, it's still got to look like a Ford GT. So you're going to figure out how to keep this car on the ground, and you can't see it on the surface. So all the aero is done underneath this car. The front splitters, the side splitters, the rear diffuser, and we did screw up one thing. You didn't get the tail quite high enough. We asked Camilla, we just hell no, and put the Dan Gurney wicker bill on the end. You see that little quarter-inch flag?
The little black wicker bill on the back, guys.
That's what made the car scary. And the car, as you know, would do 213 miles an hour. And I've driven these cars at I suppose Camillo, but that's besides the point. At well over 180, and they are dead stable. Dead stable. Now, how did we sell this program? We were asked to do it, as John said. I had come over from Chrysler. I wanted to do a mid-engine Viper to beat Ford. Didn't happen. Ended up getting to Ford my first week. I convinced management we got to do a GT40, even though they tried GT70s, GT90s, and all of that. We did. We worked on it for a long while. Nothing was happening. Finally, when we keyed in on the design, Jay Mays and I said, screw it, we're going to put it in a car show. People loved it in the car show. The program still wouldn't have gotten approved if not Jack Nasser got fired. We got a call. I think John went up with me, or Freddie did, and Jay, and we went up to the COO's office. He says, Bill Ford's the new man in charge. He's the CEO. We need to show that he's in control. Which car should we do, the 49 concept car or the GT40? And he was leaning towards what he called the 49er because he was a brick. We said, no, we really want to do the GT40. And then Jay, and I don't know if you had any involvement, well, you did. You had involvement in doing the Gulf colors. We had the original fiberglass at the basement of the executive elevator. And we said, come on, let's show you something. Now, Nick Shaler was a brick. Most of the U.S. people didn't even know where Le Mans was. We took him down the elevator. The elevator doors open. The elevator doors open, and the headlights from a Gulf-colored Ford GT are staring him in the face, and he damn near fell to his knees and said, oh, you buggers. And we went back upstairs, got the program approved on 2 sheets of paper, as I recall, John. And that was the event that kicked it off. But there was a proviso. We had 15 months to the Centennial, Ford Centennial. We had to have the team had to have 3 production representative red, white, and blue cars ready for the Centennial in 2003, and then we had to be in production. And so they designed basically the whole car by the Centennial, and then just refined it to get it ready for production. So that's enough. Got it?
Back to John. Camillo,
There's always different versions.
Camillo.
No, but it was funny. I remember pushing that thing into Shayla's parking spot, and like Carol did, that was the 3rd paint job on that car.
Really?
So we kept selling the same thing.
What were the other 2 colors?
First, it was the yellow that's on the Car and Driver magazine, and then we did a white one.
Wow.
That was an Auto Week, and then Jay's like, okay, we'll tape it up for, as the Golf GT40, and we taped it up, and you could actually see some of the different stripes, because the white one and the yellow one have gaps in between the stripes, and now with the orange stripe, you could see a little divot where it was a solid stripe, but we pushed it in front of Shayla's parking spot, and he's actually, it was great to have these guys there that gave it the blessing, and the Centennial really helped because they needed a vehicle,
something to
represent Ford, for the 100 years.
John?
I don't have anything to add to that. That was the key. I think what they call it, a pace car for an entire company.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
The pace car for the entire company.
Yeah.
And they started with the commercials and the Super Bowl and all that, and that was just over the top.
And at the Centennial, the opening act was, before she was Beyonce, was the show. But at the Centennial, John and I and Shayla and Dan Gurney and Jackie Stewart and Carol Shelby drove those 3 cars onto the stage.
Yeah.
And the crowd went crazy. And that made sure, in front of the entire Ford family too, including the Henry Ford II and III. And it really helped sell the program. So that's where it went.
It was emotional.
It was a big time.
It was everything that we could do to bring this car into reality. And it was like a couple months later that Nick Shayla's with his arms out on stage says, "We're gonna build it."
Go ahead.
I guess, I was not part of the glamorous part of it there too, but that day was really special for me. It was, I think, June 3rd, 2003 was the first day of the Centennial. And it was about 5:30 a.m. that I got the call from our dynamometer that we'd passed that 300-hour durability test that I talked about earlier. So that was, it was like having my first kid. We were gigged, and the Centennial was that day. It was great for me personally. My parents were up from the farm, so they got to participate in all that, and it was really good. So all the hell I put them through growing up, they were finally a bit relieved.
And like John was saying earlier today.
Hang on, Joey.
Okay, go ahead.
And all of Camillo's emotion wasn't over the car; it was over Beyonce.
And then there was the girls in the checkered outfits.
You still got those outfits, don't you? Still got it. You got 2 of them.
If you've ever seen the auto show pictures, that was when we did the show car in Detroit. Camillo's also a fashion designer, and he had these tight mini dresses, black and white check, very form-fitting, introducing the car. But the car was still a star.
Oh, I agree. You guys agree the car's still a star? Clap. I need claps out of all of you. How about this? Go ahead, and then we're going to get back over to John. I want to go over something.
A little bit about the outfits. Jay Mays wanted that. It was his direction. They asked me to do the race suits, and then I came in with the fabric for the race suits, and he's like, no, do some checkered flag outfits. And they demanded 4 girls, and this is after overtime and all the hours. I kept working into the evening.
So dedicated.
Yeah, and they needed 4 girls. They sent me 40 girls to evaluate.
This is a hard job. And you were 20 years younger. I can imagine what happened. A lot of conversation going on.
Come on, let me know if you feel sorry for Camilla.
You know what I mean?
No way, baby.
It's very emotional. We were talking earlier about, now as time goes by, and, you know, we were talking about what we like, don't like. When I had every one of you individually up here, you all had the same response. It's basically perfect. The way it ended up, overall, for what it came out to be, and what it is now 20 years later. And it's true, that's why we bought the old heritage behind it. Not that it's only a beautiful car. You look at the car, the lines are great. But remember, that was Eric Broadway's design in 1960 with a little cockamamie Lotus motor that was doing 120 horsepower. Okay? You go from that to this with all the amenities, and today, unlike the Chrysler Charger or Challenger, whatever that two-door is, the proportions aren't right. They're just not. It's too bulky up top, it's too skinny on the bottom, the overhangs that you understand. It's just, it looks kind of like the old car, but it's not sleek enough. But you round it out, especially in those quarter panels, which we were talking about yesterday. If you take the rear haunch, if you take the fascia and the bumper, even though that was an extension, like you were talking about with a Volkswagen Bug, all three make a curve. Opposite directions, but it all forms one piece. He's got the mic. You could go right there.
There was one more determined request on the car, and it had to go up another like 10 millimeters.
Okay.
This went up 17 millimeters from the concept car, and they wanted more, and we actually beased it out with a gurney dome.
Right.
The gurney dome gave us the head swing so that we had clearance for this 95 percentile. Yeah, the gurney bubble.
Yep.
I mean, we were so lucky that they let us put that in the clay model. And then finally, at one point, Fred Goodnow goes, "Get rid of that thing." And I'm like, "I'll take it with it or without it. You know, just don't make me raise the car."
Right. Right. That would have changed the total proportions with the rig, correct?
Look, there it is. That's the last sign of it.
Right there.
It's on the
Workhorse
workhorse.
bar?
That was on the clay
Right.
for feasibility.
Now, when we went to Celine, for the rally as the end was coming, we were all hot and heavy on getting the gurney bubble. But now, I'm not saying it's bad, and we had some basketball players that were 7 feet tall that needed it. Even though you could be about 6'8" and still fit in it if you launched the chair back. I actually, 6 foot, have to put the chair up. And I drove around the world like that for 13,000 miles. But now when you look at the bubble, especially in the Primer or whatever, man, it's so smooth without the bubble. It's just so sleek.
And there's something about the surface development on there is that when this car was going through the stages of the concept car, Ford and the automotive world were still very influenced about the teardrop aerodynamic bubble car.
Right.
And we were exploring surfaces that are almost flat. So we were going against the bubble car completely. And we got into a lot of discussions with the sheet metal guys saying, "Camillo, you're going to get oil can surfaces, you know, they're going to clink, you know, like that, especially on the roof." And I had designed a ditch in the roof. It was like, we took like a quarter and dragged it in the clay, and that was just going to give you a ridge. And once again, they're like, "Get rid of that, Camillo, we got it."
Go ahead, Chris.
Speaking of the flat roof, that was the other thing that I warned the guys in advance. If you look at the Mark IV over there, you'll see there's a flap over the top of the doors.
Yep.
And because at 200 miles an hour, the doors would get stuck open.
Oh.
So what the guys did, besides the flap that was talked about by Camillo, if you notice on the Ford GT, there are actually forks that stick out. You grab the top of the door and bring it down. Otherwise, at 200 miles an hour, you'd be seeing daylight. little details that don't happen at 200 miles an hour.
Right, so besides the locking pin on the door, you had the two catches up top. If you guys want to open that door, is he around? He's around. Go ahead. Show everybody what we're up to. Hey, are you guys having a fun time? Is this good?
Yeah!
Yeah, boy. I know we're getting tired. It's 2 days, but you see how it's got the dual catches up top? Nice.
Thank you, Vanna White.
Obviously, we didn't have that in the concept car because that was governed to 35 miles an hour just so that we wouldn't hurt ourselves.
Nice.
But there's a low pressure vacuum, and that was what lifts that.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to other things on the car. Maybe we'll give it back to John. John, did you have any restrictions? Did anybody come to you and say, look, we can't do this, we can't, or you just had to get this thing
Sorry.
built? You know, did they say you just can't do it?
As I recall, we knew where we wanted to end up, and nobody bugged us. At least nobody bugged me.
Now, we also had innovations on this car because it was limited production, basically, even 4,000.
We're the ones that set it at 4,000 because if you think about it, some people wanted to build it, extend the cycle plan, and you know what? What does Ferrari do that's nice? They build cars, a model,
Yeah.
they limit it, and guess what? If the car's good, which most of the time they are,
Yeah.
they're instant hits and collector's items,
And then they sit in the
you
room.
just don't want to overbuild.
Right.
We don't want to overbuild it. So, what we learned at SDT was if you can build and have the supply be just one less than McMahon.
That's right. BMW still does that with a lot of
Yeah,
stuff
that's
today.
what you want to do. So when we decided on 4,000, it was based on what we looked at other supercars and said this is the right volume to do. Now, typically in automotive companies, when you get into financial trouble, which we were walking the line, usually they crank up the volume to save themselves.
Right.
But we didn't do it on this case.
Now, there were innovations on this car, that's what we were leading into. Because it was a limited production car, in parentheses, remember we had the first capless gas tank flap. We also had the HIDs, I think this was the first of the HID, right, with the camera lens? I don't know who that would be.
First on this car.
Okay, so we had...
The gas cap was, it's a four-tanketed item, and it's on all the cars now.
Oh yeah, no, but that was the first that we remember. And the HIDs, correct?
I worked on that.
Go ahead.
I worked on that pretty intensively with Fred Goodnow, and I didn't want the second cap in there. And it's like, Camillo, you need a fuel lid. And I'm like, this is the fuel lid.
Yeah.
And he came back and he says, we got it.
Yeah.
We engineered it. And there was another thing on this car, is cars didn't have a start button yet.
Right.
At all. Nowhere.
Locking ignition collar.
No, and the green GT40 that was in our studio, it was really cool. When you sat in there, you had to click on the ignition, you had to click on the fuel, you had to turn the key, you had to push the button, and it felt like you were going somewhere special, like you were leaving a rocket.
That's right.
And I said, well, it was easy to do in the concept car because nobody was going to fight you. But when it came to production, I said, I want that push button.
Yeah.
I want to turn the key.
Yeah.
And I want the key over there in the middle. And we settled halfway. They said, Camilla, we're not taking the key off the column. Right. Because there was a lot of feasibility and liability and all this stuff. So it's like, we'll give you the push button, but the key's got to stay on the column. And we looked everywhere. And the only place we found a push button start was on John Deere.
Really?
And that was a John Deere component.
Really?
Yeah. And we had to search north, south, east, and west for that damn thing because that really, it wasn't part of the automotive world, right, to push start that car. And then the other thing was that this was the first production car for Ford that was all aluminum.
That's right. That's
So we learned a lot of aerospace technology, like the friction, the friction welding, and then the roll bonding. So all these type of welding techniques, so that you wouldn't change the quality of the aluminum, because when the aluminum goes through this heat, it changes its spec. So you had to contain it, you had to learn to weld components without putting them through heat, and all that is aerospace technology. And this is also the first car that Ford ever did that was production that included carbon fiber. Now we had carbon fiber seat shells, and the whole back clamshell is carbon fiber.
CP1, that's right.
Underneath.
For people that weren't here before, when I purchased CP1 from them at the Shelby event, which was Rally 3, the first prototype which I owned, which was a carbon fiber rear clamshell. And Fred was there that night and said, why wouldn't you go with the carbon fiber? That one carbon fiber clamshell costs over $40,000. And he goes, well, that's not going to be in the boat.
The thing is that it is carbon, but if you want to see the weave,
it's not
complicated to lay down the weave. So it's carbon, but it's just matte black. Yeah. I mean, when you asked us about maybe some sacrifices and things, the only thing that we had to sacrifice, that we lived through it, and it's a reasonable approach, is the floating bumper. Well, because we resisted that, and like I said, the fact that it looks like a Volkswagen bumper. That's how I approach it.
But the way you sculpt the corners of it, where it goes up with the fascia, it all blends up like you know.
At the end of the day, because it was body color, I started warming up to it, but the intentions were to remove it.
Yeah.
And there's another item. You see the clearance in that front wheel?
Yeah.
There's a lot of clearance in there to get full jounce with the wheel turned all the way. But let me tell you, if you get that high with the wheel turned all the way, you did something really bad. But so the immediate thing when I would get my GPs is we'd lower it in the front and remove the bumpers.
Now, what about with DHID? Does anybody remember any of that? How it came about? Why we use HID lights? Before LEDs?
It was state of the art.
Right.
It was state of the art, and the headlamps on the concept car, they were more inspired by literally the dentist lamp that came into your face. And I had to go to the dentist, and I told Jay I stopped to make the headlamp like that thing. It's a reverse projection.
Correct. It's like a photo
shoot. So it goes backwards and then forward.
Yeah.
But when we went into production, I said, you need, an HID headlamp, and here it is.
Okay, Chris?
There is one thing, the HID was state of the art. The week on the 4 GT is we really only wanted one HID lamp on each side. And that's the only HID lamp that has an eyelid. And you see it when you go on, when you're working the ID, there's a little eyelid. It actually, the foot flips and opens and closes to see how light you get down the road. Another technical feature that nobody else has.
So we've got the gas cap, we've got the HIDs. Anything Kurt at your end that was, go ahead, anything for Kurt, anything at your end that was completely innovative. Now, of course, we're going to the supercharger with the screw.
We certainly didn't invent it, but it was probably the first production application for Ford was the drive lubrication system.
Right.
When the oil pump is mounted internally, we've got two scavenge pumps on that that actually totally on the cylinder block. We designed the drain back to the cylinder vents around the side of the block, and they made up the holes right on the oil pan, and the oil pan casting channels that oil right into the basin where the scavenge pumps pick up and put it into the reservoir tank. And it's very effective. It lets us get the engine center of gravity way lower in the car. And it was also needed, for package with another. It's a high performance lubrication system.
There's a cooler underneath that supercharger, correct or no? Is there a cooler?
There
You have an intercooler.
It's a brick intercooler that's in the intake manifold that's right underneath the supercharger. So that's something that SVT kind of innovated back in the 2 injectors per cylinder.
Yep, we were talking about that yesterday, and for other people that weren't here, that's why the bonnet's open. So when you see 2 injectors per cylinder, and again, where your hose line's coming for your fuel injectors, please at this age, put a hose clamp on each one of those injectors, not each injector, but on the fuel rail where the pressing is, because they're getting old, they're starting to weep a little bit, and the clamp, if you don't want to replace it, just put a clamp on it, it's a good safety.
Yeah, that's something good to know against your owner. I mean, that whole fuel rail system, we got with production suppliers on that, so don't mess around with fuel.
Right.
So that's all production connections and everything on there. But yeah,
And I gotta-
the twin injectors is unique, and we had to do that. But at that point in time, an injector that drove enough fuel for the power on that was difficult to control down at the idle, controlling for emissions.
Right, without wiping out a cylinder or something. But what are you basically running on? One injector per cylinder until like 120, 30? What is it?
Yeah, it depends on the speed load pump, but it starts on one injector. Yeah, you're not running two until the speed load gets to the point that you need a second injector. So,
All right, boy, it kicks in for the most part. It's got to be over 100 miles an hour.
you generally, yeah.
Unless you rev it, you're saying you hit 7,000. So we went up a mountain. When we were talking, you and I, yesterday, you could put the pulley and tune on this thing. You could put the headers or Alex Paula's muffler, which was the foreman's. It was just a little less stuff in the pipe. You guys were telling me back then with the builders, with Bill Sheffer and all the rest of those guys, look, I'll give you that 3-year warranty, 36,000 miles, anything up to 800 horsepower. Do whatever the hell you want. Up to 800 horsepower. We're going to still honor that warranty. And then that's when Dave, was it Dave in Florida? Joe in Florida. I had Dave on Long Island.
Yeah.
We had two guys put on a Whipple supercharger with twin turbochargers in my backyard.
Ouch.
These guys were 1,475 horsepower.
1750 was a curve I saw later from the calibrator that was up.
1750.
1750, yeah.
Yeah. No traction control or nothing, huh?
Oh no, that thing when those turbos kicked in, 'cause these are big turbos too, so
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of surge.
But the
When
key
they
was
hit
we
in.
couldn't blow
And you're
them up.
running, 80, 90 mile an hour and the back end comes loose on you.
But we couldn't blow them up.
No.
You couldn't blow the damn thing up. Now, for anybody that watches YouTube, the guy, I forgot his name, did 308, 307. Did you guys see that on the standing mile? Well, anyway, he's 293, then 295. He finally got over 300. It was like 303, 304. The body's basic stock. Wheels and everything else is, upgraded for the speed. But it's still your original block.
Yes.
They never touched the block. It's everything outside that. They didn't put something else in there, in that body. It was still the basic 5.4 block. So what were the tolerances for that? I mean, obviously, you weren't expecting to go to 300 miles. I think you guys were working on 200 miles, right? As a baseline, correct?
Yeah.
202.
A lot of them are just, standard kind of tolerance.
211, 211.
One of the, in the lower end of the block, that's where we had to pay a lot of attention on tolerance. Where we got billet, main bearing caps in it, and it's a deep skirted block with cross bolts. You've got 6-bolt mains. And the clearance between the sides of those caps and the skirts on the block is critical. And that's one thing in production. They have a really hard time holding that, and they use jack screws and these tapered pins to accommodate for the clearance. We were able to, at low volume like that too. Plus, we machined this block in-house. That was done by Ford. And we were able to control those tolerances so that you could slip the caps in and manage
So that machining was all done at Romeo?
No, it was actually done in engine manufacturing development operations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we had 2 builders per engine, which is signed on the plates. I think 6 sets of 2, correct?
Something, I believe that's right. That was engine assembly. That was done, yes, in the Romeo engine plant.
Now, what did we do? Final assembly, did they break them in? Did they run them 2 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, or no?
No, not that long. They ran hot test on it. A little bit more extensive than what we did on a typical production engine. The lubrication system was all intact. We actually shipped the engine to the plants with that fuel or the oil reservoir on the pallet with the engine going there, so that wouldn't have to get broke at the plant or opened up. So everything was primed and charged.
Wow. We went through this. We all like the design 100%. Guys, before we wrap it up, and we're going to start autographs, whoever has anything left, a couple of guys want their cars autographed, if that's okay with you guys? Sure. That's okay? Hold on. Yeah, let's go. Camilo, thanks. Kurt.
We had some pretty heated meetings, the feasibility meetings where everybody came in and they had their assignments for that week, and Fred Goodnow would be there, and sometimes we're fortunate to have these guys in the meeting.
Nice.
But I would have loved to have been there if we could go back in time and say, look, we're considering 300 miles an hour.
Could you imagine?
And we're thinking the arrow's going to hold up. I mean, Fred would have lost it. And we also might have said, we're probably going to go for over 1,000 horsepower. And we're keep the block the same, and we're not changing the body. What do you guys think?
Right.
I mean, they would have just exploded because, you're going to kill yourself. I mean, Fred didn't even want us to explore the pulley and tune. This is 550 horsepower. That's more than enough to kill yourself.
Right.
And we're doing pulley and tune for 650 continuously. But nobody projected the vehicle to go so hard, so long, and so much farther than our expectations.
Chris, I thought you had something to say about that. No? No, about that with the speeds. We were talking about this maybe a couple of years ago when this guy started breaking those records. And you're like, Joe, this wasn't even in the cards. Go ahead.
No, I mean, Camilla just said it right. Nobody was thinking about taking this car up to 300 miles an hour. If you think about it, and what's really amazing, the Bugatti Veyron at the time, any one of those tuned Ford GTs would blow the doors on it in the Texas Mile. And that was back then was a $2 million car with 1,000 horsepower. So, I mean, this thing's stout. And one last point for all of you. This thing has the durability of any production Ford car you would buy. We've got cars with well over 100,000 miles on them. Try doing that in a Ferrari. This car was built to production car standard. You don't have to change oil. You don't have to change belts every 5,000 miles. It's a very durable product, and I think that's why people still love driving it.
Well, guys, I can't thank you enough. Everybody, final word. What would you like to say? We'll start with Kurt. We'll walk down the line. First of all, I can't thank you guys enough for coming out. People have been asking to do this. I said, let's wait for the 20th 2 years ago. Lance is somewhere in the room. We got the tent. We've had a lot of people, little people in here, rainstorms, and they're still all coming out. It's just a great time, and I can't thank you guys. We give them a round of applause for all four. Thank you. Kurt, you go first.
It's a real honor to be here, and one of the things that I was told that limited my career at Ford Motor Company was I didn't know how to kiss asses. And I'll think since I no longer work there, I'll take the opportunity to do it now. But we couldn't have done that program without the senior management team we had. This guy can make a decision with 80% of the information. Any other bosses at Ford, not Chris here, but I mean, typically in that position, you need 120% of the information to make a decision. So it's too late by the time they make it. We knew as engineers that the majority of the information they had was bad information to begin with. Two, John knew how to throw the dice, and he would be right 80% of the time. The 20% of the time he wasn't. As long as it wasn't fatal, we went and fixed it and took care of it.
Again, but you're calling the shots.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not committed like today.
We didn't wait around. No, we got the decisions when we needed it. And Chris, the most powerful vice president in Ford Motor Company at the time, made himself available to us whenever we needed him. And that wasn't the only program he was handling. But we had one case real quick where we had a supplier that was not getting us a part that we needed on time. It was the concentric slave center on the clutch. It was coming out of Europe. And they were giving me the runaround. They wouldn't support us, so give us your president. Well, he's in Argentina on vacation.
Yeah, right.
So we're sitting there, Kid Harris and I are sitting there going, this is early in the program. And he said, Chris told us to call him if we ever have a problem. Let's do it. So we talked to his secretary, and she goes, the GT program? Chris called us back within 30 minutes. That afternoon, the president of FTE called us from Argentina and told us we had the parts tomorrow. So that's just one example. The stuff he did for us through that program was just remarkable.
Well, a round of applause for Kurt Hill. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. John, final words.
Other than the fact that you're persistent and you got me to come out here.
Oh, I love you.
But it was my pleasure, and it was great getting together with the guys again. And I'm looking at this Red Baron and thinking, God, I'd love to have that sign together and drag it on. You know what I mean? This was a very, very nice piece. Thank you for the invitation. Thanks to all of you for being Ford fans.
Thank you, Mike. Round of applause for John Coletti. Camillo, you're up. And thank you, John. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend. You're up.
Honestly, I do want a copy of the photo of all of us here together.
Guys, did somebody
we've
take a
been
picture
in a
of this?
meeting in a long time together.
Hold on.
And the other thing is that what Chris said, I always tell everybody that about the Ford GT. It's built like an F-150, and it's got some tremendous durability. And when they were testing it like that, I always said, you know, you're doing all that just for me, because I'm the only one that's going to drive it, you know, cross country, and I put 100,000 miles across 6 of these cars. And I drive them, I jump into these things with great confidence. You check your oil, ask your oil guy, your Rich Brooks or whatever, and he's like, you're good. What's the depth on your tread? Go, drive to LA.
Yep.
You're all set. And there was another thing about our team. When we did this car, we did it so fast, so efficient, and we set a record to outperform Ferrari, you know, in all categories. I thought that was going to be a standard, but I don't think they've had a team like us since then.
Round of applause. Hey, hold on. Thank you, Camillo, as well. And by the way, Camillo's right. Those early days, my red GT 131405 and your white car, when you had no stripes, case wheels, we used to drive down with 2 cars in the snow to go to 24 Hours of Daytona. That the windbreak on the whatever, spoiler, that spoiler actually pushed the snow out of the way.
Well, I don't recommend it, but I did have to escape from Detroit in the snow to get down to the Keys, and that was my annual Christmas thing. Is I take this thing down to Key West every year.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful time. Round of applause for Camillo. Guys, start lining up for autographs. Chris, you're the one I started with all those years ago. Besides Camillo, okay? Tell us, what would you like to say?
Well, the last point is simply this. When we kicked this thing off, Neil Wessler and I, we got the team together, and we said to all of the guys, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And of course, Freddie, who you don't know, but who really ramrodded this program too, said, nobody gets their wife pregnant, nobody goes on vacation, we're going to get this car done. It's been a thrill for all of us. This is a lifetime achievement for every one of us. I don't think any of us ever thought we'd do anything greater in this vehicle. And the best part is to have you people showing how much you appreciate this vehicle 20 years later. It's an antique now, but it's a damn fast one, and it's a damn good looking one, and we appreciate your interest.
Round of applause for Christy and Prince. Thank you. Hold on, I want to say something in a minute. But thank you, my friend. You've always been there for me for 20 years, everything we want to do. Can't believe I bought Sonic Blue from you. All right, now guys.
The people said, how come Joey didn't give you back Sonic Blue? Well, he's a nice guy.
Like that. Yeah. He's here too. Round of applause. We're going to step down now. Guys, whatever you like, Sonic, we're going to bring some Lance. If it wasn't for Lance and Lance's dad and Bill, tell us, thank you once again. Anything you'd like to add?
Give them a big round of applause. How about GT Joey? And
That's
it. All right. You're not going to see this anywhere else. So thank you guys very much for being here at Carlisle. And that goes for all of you as well. There's a lot of hardcore enthusiasts. We can't thank you enough. You can be anywhere this weekend, but you're here in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Thank you.
In the rain, no rain.